Happy Saturday evening. It is day 3 of the Bible recap. We had to read chapters 8, 9, 10, and 11 in Genesis. So let me just show you the notes that I take. It's not that many notes, and then this is what I did in my Bible last year when I started the Bible recap. Look at that pretty little rainbow. Okay, let's get started. So in chapter 8, they have been in the ark, oh my goodness, for such a long time. And finally, the ark comes to rest on a mountain called Ararat. And then they wait 40 more days, and then Noah sends out a raven. Okay, so the raven comes back, meaning there's no dry land anywhere. So he sends out a dove, and he sends that dove out 3 times. Now, the second time, the dove brings back an olive branch. Okay, the third time, the dove never returns. So that's when he knows that they can leave the ark whenever God tells them to, but that all of the floodwaters have dried up. The first thing that Noah did when he and his family were instructed by God to leave the ark was to build an altar. So once again, we see the faithfulness of Noah, him being righteous and blameless, which was the whole reason why he and his family were spared. Now in chapter 9, it gets a little spicy. You know, the Old Testament has some spicy parts to it. God tells them to be fruitful and multiply, to replenish the earth. And he also tells them to fill the earth. So be fruitful, multiply, and then scatter so that the earth will be filled. He also gives them everything to eat, not just the plants. They can eat the meat now, but they can't eat meat if it still has lifeblood in it. And I'm not real sure exactly what that means, but I'm thinking those of you that like your steak rare, I don't know. I'm just joking. Okay, then God establishes his covenant with mankind, with Noah and all the rest of us. And it's in the form of a rainbow in the sky. And what that means is he will never destroy all living things again, or he will never destroy the earth by flood. We know that eventually he will destroy the earth by fire. But he says that that rainbow is his promise to us that the flood, there will never be another flood that destroys everything. Now here's where Noah slipped up just a little bit. He got a little drunk. Yeah, he got a little drunk. And his youngest son, Ham, went in the tent and saw his father naked. And instead of covering him up or, helping him out or whatever, when your parents intoxicated and passed out potentially, he went and told his brothers. So his brothers took something in there to cover up their dad. And they even backed up to him so that they would not see their father naked. Well, when Noah woke up and found out what Ham had done by going and telling his brothers, I guess, and not covering him up, he said he was going to curse his son, Canaan. And boy, did he, because we'll read about the Canaanites much, much later. Okay, in chapter 10, it's the genealogy again. But I noticed something interesting, and I noticed it last time too, because, I've read Genesis about 5 or 6 times. But Ham, the youngest son, the one whose son Canaan was cursed by Noah, his descendants, when they move off, they end up in the land of Babylonia. They end up in the city of Babylon, and we'll hear about that later on. They end up in the city of Nineveh. We'll hear about that when we read about Jonah. And then they ended up in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. So those cities really are in a negative connotation in the Bible. We'll learn about that. And they come from Ham's descendant who was cursed. Okay, chapter 11 was the last chapter we had to read today. And the people did do what God had instructed them by multiplying, but they didn't scatter. They all landed, they all just sort of congregated in the land of Babylonia. And they started building this tower to make a name for themselves. And the tower will be named Babel because God said, you can't do this. You were supposed to go and scatter and fill the earth. And if you can build this tower to the heavens, then what else can you do? So he does scatter them, and he also divides them up by language barriers. And we know all about language barriers nowadays, right? And then that was called the Tower of Babel because he made it where if you don't speak somebody's language, it just sounds like a bunch of babbling to you. And then Shem, which was one of the older brothers of Ham, one of the sons of Noah, it gives his genealogy, and it gives his genealogy all the way to Abram, who will eventually be renamed by God as Abraham. And I think most of you have heard about Abraham. So anyway, these 4 chapters are very interesting, even though I've read them several times. I love reading about God's promise, the rainbow. I love reading about, I love reading about how everything came to be. So I hope you enjoyed it too, and I will talk to you later. Bye.